Hello and welcome to an instructional video on using PowerPoint for speeches. I'm not going to teach you how to use PowerPoint. There are plenty of awesome videos and websites that can cover that. Instead, I'm going to talk about best practices you should employ when using PowerPoint in conjunction with a speech. So, here are my PowerPoint tips. Tip number one is to hide the magic. What I mean by that is, when you're first loading your PowerPoint, make sure the projector is either off or muted. That means you can make it so nobody can see what's going on while you're accessing the file on a flash drive or your email. Nothing looks more unprofessional than seeing all of that stuff that goes on behind the curtain. The next tip is to make sure that you don't use the PowerPoint as a crutch. You have note cards to remind yourself what you're going to say next. The PowerPoint is there to help you with images that exemplify what you're saying. Don't read off your PowerPoint, and don't read to your PowerPoint either. Always face your audience. Next, I rarely recommend that you have a title slide or your name at the start of your PowerPoint. I realize that this is a common occurrence with some public speakers, but I think it takes the element of surprise away from your presentation. It's really awesome to be able to reveal your topic when you're ready, somewhere at the end of your AGD, but a title slide gives away the topic right away. Another thing to consider is to not have any words in your PowerPoint, or very few words at least. I know this might seem counterintuitive, but that's because most students think of what teachers do with their PowerPoints, like the one you're watching right now. But my purpose is to get you to take notes and learn something. When giving a speech, unless you expect the audience to write something specific down, I would avoid words. If you do need to use words, control them. You'll notice that I have been revealing words one line at a time. That's because I want you to focus on what I'm saying now and not what I'll be saying next. So make sure you create animations that allow that to happen. As a rule, avoid charts and graphs in your speeches unless you absolutely need them. They tend to confuse and, like excessive words, distract from you as a speaker. You should also try to use a simple design. A minor contrast and color is best. But you do want some sort of design. You might not have noticed, but I'm using a blank design right now. Normally, I have some sort of design in the background. Take a look at the difference. It's really subtle, and most people will probably not notice on a conscious level, but it is subconsciously pleasing to our brains. The next thing is really important. Use pictures, lots of them. That's really what PowerPoint is for. It replaces those old-fangled things called slideshows, in which people would just show pictures. You can show your own pictures or ones you find from the internet, but be aware that if you show graphic pictures, you should warn your audience before you do it, or avoid using graphic pictures altogether, unless you have no choice. You should also cite any pictures you use, especially if you found them on the internet. Just insert a little text box, and you'll be fine. And one final tip is you should also put blank slides in between your pictures so that you're not distracting the audience, but no, you're not to use blank slides in your Pecha Kucha speech. And finally, one final tip is to include a blank slide at the start of your presentation. But do include a dot in that slide. I'll show you what I mean. Here's a blank slide without a dot. The thing is, on a projection screen, it just looks like the projector is off. By adding a little dot, and this is the one without the dot, by the way, by adding a little dot, we can now see that the projector is on. So this is the one without the dot. This is the one with a dot. Now, okay, so I want to show you a couple of examples of slides from a speech a student gave about breast cancer. The first slide is great. The reason PowerPoint exists, it's a cancer cell, and it's not something you could effectively describe in words. Excellent. However, this next slide isn't so good. As you can see, lots of words and a really badly imaged pie chart. This isn't what PowerPoint in a speech is good for. Now, I want you to take a look at a PowerPoint from a student I had several years ago. It's one of the best PowerPoints I've ever seen. For starters, she starts her speech off with a blank slide, like this one. Then she had a slide somewhere near the end of her AGD where she introduces her topic, which is cervical cancer awareness. In this case, she has a picture of a logo. This is one of those cases where I'm okay with the words. It's not too distracting. Next, we have another blank slide, which is great. Now, her speech was about the human papilloma virus, otherwise known as HPV. It's an infection that, if a woman gets it, can cause cervical cancer. The virus also causes sores. The picture I'm about to show you is a person with extreme sores caused by HPV. I'm about to show you a very graphic picture, but I'll only show it for a few moments, so you can avert your eyes if you need to. As you can see, we have another blank slide here. One of the primary ways HPV is transmitted is through sex. It's actually estimated that 1 out of 3 people who have been sexually active have HPV, but most people deny they have it, that these HPV carriers are like faceless people that don't exist. As you can see, she used this image of faceless shadows to exemplify this point. Very, very clever. She certainly didn't find this image by Googling HPV or cervical cancer. This is where it's important to try to be creative. And here's another blank slide. The thing with HPV is that because it can cause cervical cancer in women, that it has major health implications. Fortunately, there is a vaccine that young women can take that will prevent them from contracting HPV in the future. It's a great thing to look into if you or somebody you know is a young woman. It's a vaccine to prevent cancer, basically. One more blank slide here, and we're almost at the end of the student's presentation. The last slide is great. You see, she had a family member with cervical cancer, so she simply ended by saying that we should reach our hand out and hold the hand of somebody in need. We never know when we'll need it ourselves. This final slide had the entire audience crying. It was pretty brilliant. And that's the end of my presentation on PowerPoint presentations. I hope it was helpful. Have a great day, everyone.